To succeed in Albion Online, you need to know the mechanics. Nothing feels more frustrating than dying and losing progress without really understanding what exactly happened or what you did wrong. In the next 8 minutes or so, I'm going to explain to you the mechanics of interacting with other players and your mount and equipment in Albion Online. Regardless of whether you are a PvP player or a PvE player or a gatherer, if you come into contact with other players in the open world or the mist, then these are important things. Okay, mechanic number 1 is basic, and I'm sure you probably know this. When you dismount in the mists or in the open world, you can instantly use your weapon abilities, but your armor abilities are still on cooldown for 5 seconds. Let's keep going. What if you dismount and there's a player nearby? In that case, you will be unable to attack for 5 seconds and all of your abilities will be on a 5-second cooldown. This will happen if there's an enemy player within 50 meters of where you dismount, and you will see an exclamation mark above your head. By the way, invisible players around you also trigger this, so if you're, for example, gathering and then you just quickly mount and dismount again and for no reason you see an exclamation mark above your head, that means there is somebody invisible close to you. Next, if you dismount within 50 meters of an enemy player who is in combat with somebody else, then instead of 5 seconds you will get a 15-second cooldown and the same kind of exclamation mark, and you will not be able to use your abilities or attack anyone during these 15 seconds. Next, if you get dismounted by another player, then you do not have any cooldowns and you can use all your abilities right away. This is why popular ratting technique is not to dismount on top of a fight to avoid the 15-second cooldowns, but instead try to position yourself in the middle of the fight so that you get dismounted by other players or mobs. Let's talk about when you can mount up. If your mount is standing next to you, it will take half a second to mount up. However, if you are mounting up by summoning your mount, then it will take 3 seconds. So putting this knowledge together with what we talked about a minute ago, if somebody aggressively dismounts on top of you, they are not able to do anything for 5 seconds and your mounting up will take maximum 3 seconds, so you can always mount up before they will be able to hit you. Next, whenever you are actively in combat, meaning you either damage your enemy or take other combat actions such as purging them or slowing them, your mount will keep refreshing its 10-second cooldown. In other words, you will always need to wait at least 10 seconds from the last time you damaged your opponent before you can start mounting up. Being in combat passively, in other words, getting hit by your opponent, does not give you this mount up cooldown. So if your enemy did damage to you and let's say you managed to run away, you don't need to wait any time at all, you can start mounting up right away. However, your mount's health also affects your ability to mount up. If you get dismounted by damage, your mount will always go on a 30-second cooldown because it needs time to heal up, basically. If you dismounted willingly, but your mount was not full health, then after it disappears, so you run out of the circle, it will still take some time to heal up to full and you will not be able to mount up until it reaches that full HP, which will be proportional to the HP the mount had. Meaning, if your mount was half HP when you dismounted, then before you can mount up again, you will need to wait half of the 30-second cooldown, so 15 seconds. Let's put all this knowledge together in an interesting way before we move on. If an enemy dismounts you, you will get a 30-second cooldown before you can mount up again. However, the enemy who did damage to you is not able to mount up for 10 seconds after the last time they did damage. So what they can actually do is dismount you, then wait 10 seconds, for example, you used your boots to run away or something, they can mount up again, catch up to you, dismount on top of you, wait for another 5 seconds, and be able to continue the fight before you are able to mount up again. Rewind if you need to listen to my last sentence again to make sure that all parts of that make sense to you now. Let's talk now about switching your gear, your spells and your consumables. If you change your equipment, all your spells go on a 10-second cooldown. However, if you change any of the spells on the equipment you are already wearing, everything goes on a 5-second cooldown. This includes changing passive spells. Now obviously if some of your buttons were already on cooldown from before, then you won't be able to reduce them by changing something. This means that if someone you are about to fight changes their spells close to you, you can actually take advantage of that by attacking them while they still have the 5-second cooldown. Changing spells does not remove your buffs or effects on you. Meaning, if you are trying to space in a battle in order to change your W, for example, to counter your opponent, you can use boots, then switch your W and your boots effect will still last. This also means that you can actually go invisible with Assassin Jacket, then change your spell while invisible, and once you come out you are ready to fight your opponent with the new spells. Now if you are in combat, doesn't matter if you are actively participating in it or you are passively just being hit by an enemy, then you are not able to change anything about your gear or switch your spells. You are also not able to change out your equipped food or potions. However, if your potion or food slot is empty, then you are able to equip whatever you have in your inventory, and that will not give you any sort of cooldown. You'll be able to use it right away. This is why the common strategy, which by the way I also mentioned in my other videos, is to keep your potion slot open and have multiple potions with you in the mists so that you are able to choose the one which you want to use in any specific situation. And the exact same applies for food, so you can have different food options and equip the one that you want to use. However, once you equip any food or potions, not once you use them, but already once you equip them, if you are in combat, you will not be able to swap it out. Next, let's quickly talk about what it means to be in combat. A couple times in this video, I've referred already to being actively in combat and passively in combat. When another player uses abilities or does damage to you, you are passively in combat. When you are passively in combat, your natural health regeneration does not work. You will not gain health unless you use healing spells or are healed by a healer. And as we just discussed, while you are in combat, even passively, you are not able to switch out any of your gear pieces or change your skills. However, while you are passively in combat, you are still able to mount up or exit the zone where you are. When you are actively in combat, meaning when you use your spells on any of your opponents or do damage to them, then you are no longer able to exit the zone, and you are no longer able to mount up. If you remember, it gives you that 10-second cooldown for your mount. Once you are in combat, there's two ways for the combat to end. Number one is if your enemy no longer exists. So either they have died or they have exited the zone. Then the combat ends immediately. This is why if you kill your opponent and then see a rat approaching, the moment you kill your opponent, you can eat a soup and start regenerating because you are no longer in combat. Unless, of course, you do damage to that new player, which then starts the new combat, but you understand that. The second way for combat to end is for there to be no interactions between players for 20 seconds. So if you're running away and you want to change your spells, for example, or you're wondering when your regeneration will kick in, it's 20 seconds since the last time either you did damage to your opponent or they did damage to you. Other spells such as purges will also count as being combat. However, reflects will not. Meaning that if all you do is just reflect the damage with a Hunter Hood or Inferno Shield or something else, then you will not be actively in combat, even though you are technically doing damage to your opponent. I hope you've gained some clarity today on these fundamental mechanics. You are one small step closer to becoming a true legend in the world of Albion Online. If you have friends who need to understand these things, don't forget to send them the video and enjoy your life.